So I'm going to call to order the regularly scheduled October 13th, 2022 Town of Nantucket Zoning Board of Appeals meeting. Would someone make a motion to approve the agenda as revised?
So moved.
Okay, so Elisa has made the motion and Michael has seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay, so that motion carries. Next, we have the approval of the minutes from September 8th, 2022. I read those over. I didn't have any corrections or comments. Staff did not have any corrections or comments. Anyone else see anything in there that they needed or felt needed to change? Okay. Would someone make a motion to approve the minutes from September 8th, 2022?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Elisa makes the motion, Michael seconds. All those in favor of approving the minutes from September 2022, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay. We have two continuances requested today in old business. The first one is 37-21, 8 Bank Street. This is going to be continued to, did you guys figure out what date we could do that, or?
We did not have time to coordinate that with everyone, so I talked to the applicant November 10th.
November 10th? Okay.
We just need to make sure everyone is here on that date, because I'm not sure that they're inclined to grant further extensions.
Okay. So, would someone make a motion to continue 37-21 to 11-10-2022?
So moved. Second.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay. The second one requesting continuance is 09-22, 50 Wee Weeder Avenue. This one is also to be continued to November 10th, 2022. Would someone make that motion?
I'll make the motion. Second.
So Lisa made the motion, Elisa seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay.
Oh, Madam Chair, we had a last-minute request to continue for 4 Washington Avenue,
Okay,
file number 1022, also to November 10th.
okay, thank you. So, as Leslie just said, we have a request to continue application 10-22 for Washington Avenue to November 10th, 2022. Would someone make that motion?
Yep.
Lisa makes the motion.
So moved. Second.
Lisa seconds. All those in favor to allow the continuance, please say aye. Aye, okay. Great.
I just want to reiterate that I need to leave at 1:45 today,
Yep.
so I don't know if that affects anything.
Yeah, and I wasn't gonna sit on the last.
Lisa, you're conflicted on 13-22?
Mhm.
Okay.
Well, if there's not enough people, I'll sit on it, it's not.
Okay.
What do we need for that one?
It's a variance, so we need 4.
We need 4.
Well, you need, we want 5. It needs 4
It needs 4
positive votes to be able to grant a variance.
Okay.
It would be up to the applicant.
To decide if they want it to be heard with only 4 people.
Yeah, but then it would have to be all yeses.
Right.
No dissent, so
Yeah.
it's
Challenging.
challenging.
Challenging on the variance.
Yep.
Okay.
I would say it's not recommended either.
No.
Yeah. On a variance. Yep.
Do you agree with that, Leslie?
Yes, absolutely.
Does anyone want to call Mark Poor? I don't
have his phone number.
I don't have his number.
I don't have his number, but
You
if
can look it
somebody
up.
has it, I'll call.
It's like
Permits plus.
Permits Plus.
Mhm.
Or does anyone have Annie Bissinger's number?
Mm.
Who's?
Annie Bissinger?
I
I just have their,
think I do. No.
Jim he's on the way. He had something come up at his last
I
minute.
have Annie's number.
Yeah, I think, do you have the 228, this one?
I have her mobile.
Yeah, can you call her mobile? See if she knows where he is. Maybe you might want to do it. just at the, public safety center regular meeting. Okay, okay, that's okay, thanks. So he's,
That's where you're from. I forgot.
but he's
Who, Mark?
on Nevers?
No, they're on Duke's Road.
Yeah.
Duke's Road?
Cisco area
Yeah.
on McBound Road.
That street.
All right, so.
Deer
Deer-
Valley,
Deer Valley.
Deer
Oh, yeah.
Run.
Deer Run Road. Deer Valley.
Okay.
Starts with a D.
Okay, so there's probably nothing we can do for, unless Jim shows up before that, we can't start until one of them.
Maybe a brief recess?
Yes, so let's take a brief recess for like 10 minutes, and we'll come back and regroup.
Just a reminder, you're still on video.
Thank you. I don't know, like, I check out all the old business, the numbers will be wonky, but do you want us, should we save it?
No, I don't think you need to.
You'll reprint it all?
There's so much on the State Street, it's like
I know.
100 pages.
If you wanna save it, I mean, I can try to reuse it and line the page numbers up. Shouldn't be too difficult.
Should we give it back to you?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, you can give it back to me, or you can save it, it really,
It's just, that in particular is just so much information that it'd be a shame for you guys to have to reprint it all.
Yeah, I mean, I don't care if you just call it this month the same page numbers, I think, cause I think one of them was like,
it's the first item, I mean, it's the first agenda item anyway, so it wouldn't be too out of the loop to do that. Or actually, no, it's not.
whatever, yeah, but whatever you wanna do.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, the page numbers, even if
Doesn't
they're
matter.
not in order, you could just.
I can list them that
Yeah,
way.
it doesn't matter to me as long as it's the same. Yeah, so let me just look at mine, I took out, so you took out. I took out page 89 and 447.
So we just had that last week. Yeah, Moran.
This So we can come off mute. Okay, so we can start with our first application, which is a new business application, 1222, 14 Eat Fire Spring Road, and Attorney Quick is presenting.
Attorney Quick is actually on paternity leave at
Okay.
the moment, so I am here to take this place. My name is Kathleen Heyer.
Hi.
Hi.
So you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, members of the board. We appreciate your time this afternoon. As you are aware, we have appealed from a determination of the building inspector not to issue a stop work order for the property at 12 Eat Fire Spring Road. And we also appealed 3 building permits that were issued for the same property. I'm sorry, should I speak up more?
Yes, please.
My apologies. We set forth our objections to both the building inspector's decision and the building permits at length in the materials that we previously filed with the board. I am happy to go over some of our concerns. I do not want to take too much of your time if you have already read them, and I'm happy to answer any questions that anybody may have. Just to give a brief overview of sort of our general objections, and then I'm happy to drill down if you want. The construction at 12 Eat Fire Spring Road commenced earlier this summer without the issuance of building permits. Our client raised concerns. We reached out to the building inspector. He declined to issue a stop work order, and we do understand that at some point building permits were issued, I believe, near the end of July, at which point construction was already substantially ongoing. Foundations had been poured. I believe framing had already commenced. So our initial complaint and request is that those building permits should not have been issued, but fines should be imposed pursuant to section 139-25C1 of the bylaw for each day that construction commenced in advance of the permit's issuance. I did see in the staff report that the building inspector has levied a fine on the owners of 12 Eat Fire Spring Road. That amount is not consistent with the daily amount listed in the bylaw, given the length of time that construction was ongoing prior to the permits being issued, and we would respectfully request that a fine that is consistent with that amount.
What's the amount?
I believe the building inspector fined, this is from the staff report, $1,691 with a 4-time excess
And what do
fee
you
on
think it
that.
should be?
It's $300 a day for each day that construction was ongoing prior to the permit.
So what would that be?
Significantly more. We do not know exactly what day the construction started, but it was significantly more than the
Approximately how many days? Does anybody know?
There are pictures in here from July 13th, and the foundation's complete.
We believe construction started sometime in June.
Okay,
Permits were issued July 28th,
Yeah,
Correct.
okay.
so,
45 days maybe?
I mean, even at 30 days, it's $9,000.
Okay, thanks.
But I think, well, sorry, I think we'll let
Okay,
Paul
yeah.
answer that, but, okay, go ahead.
Thank you. And with respect to the actual buildings that are being constructed, we have raised a number of other concerns. We believe that our initial objection was that the construction, the owners had not obtained
Move that person, I'll take it home.
an updated secondary dwelling approval from the planning board. We do understand that they went back and received what appears to be a garage apartment approval. The structure that is being constructed does not meet the definition of a garage apartment, and we believe that a full secondary dwelling approval is required and should be sought from the planning board. We also have some questions with respect to whether the buildings being constructed comply with the ground coverage requirements of the zoning bylaw. It appears to be, I would say, suspiciously close to the allowed percentage. We are working off of the plans that were submitted to the HDC, so we have not been able to do complete calculations on our own, but the rough math suggests they came within half of an inch of of coverage area, and that seems questionable to us. And we would request that this board look further into whether the buildings comply with the ground coverage ratio, which in that zoning district is 3%. Excuse me, 3%. We also have a concern that the pool house, which they received a building permit for, is actually a tertiary dwelling. It includes 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, and what appears to be cooking facilities. And it does not meet the definition of a tertiary dwelling, but nonetheless, we believe some sort of zoning relief is required for that structure. And there may be potential other issues, but again, this is fairly preliminary. We're looking at initial plans, and our hope is that the board will direct the owners of 12 Eat Fire Spring Road to work a little more closely with the building department to ensure that they comply with all requirements of the zoning bylaw.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions for the presenter?
Was there any survey information in the building department file? Presumably there's a surveyor on site that's certifying ground coverage and.
So we received a survey that apparently was filed with the original HDC application, which I believe was in 2020. I do not know if there is an updated one. I have not seen one.
And who was the surveyor?
I believe it was Bracken.
Does anyone else have any questions at this time, or should we move to the building commissioner?
That's fine with me.
I just have a comment or
Sure.
two. Regarding, suspiciously close is the danger zone, I guess. But the applicant, the owner of the property, has until the time of submission of the as-built to decide what the ground cover is. So to require a as-built at this point might be a little unusual. As far as needing a planning board approval for a second dwelling, if they don't already have it, and they are planning on turning that into a dwelling, they would need to apply to the planning board and get a permit for a second dwelling. But they don't necessarily have to apply, when they apply for the permit to build a garage, with a studio above. So it's a little early, in my opinion, to have that discussion, because I think it's safe to say that everyone's going to be looking at this pretty carefully and pretty closely from now until it's finished.
Yeah, I think we don't have, at least I don't find in my package the drawings for the second dwelling or the garage apartment.
Not
you have those?
the elevations.
Or floor plans. I see the pool house and I see the main house.
But Michael,
I-
if
I
they're
thought
that
I saw the
close to the property line, a half an inch, and that's just the foundation, once the shingles are added and the sheathing, it's gonna get you a few inches over. Wouldn't the builder, the homeowner, wanna know now before they build upon a foundation?
I would want to know.
I would want to know.
Yeah,
And-
so,
And if there is something in the building bylaw that allows for a builder to hand in an as-built after the foundation's in, that protects him in the event there is an issue. And I think it goes from being a variance to a special permit, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, but I think that what you were talking about was ground cover. I don't think it's
Oh,
site.
not a setback?
So I think that, I was gonna say that it's not the building department's responsibility to verify ground coverage. That's up to the surveyor, the architect, and that information is routinely, in our office, we just do it on the computer, and that's how it goes in. And then the surveyor who pins the property has also verified it, so, knock on wood, at the end, you don't have a problem. But to Michael's point, that's not something that's, unfortunately, sometimes not verified until it is too late. So I don't think there's any responsibility on the building department's description to verify those figures. They have to take what they're given at face value and that they're the true figures.
I certainly understand that, and we respect that position. We also think that is indicative of the pushing of the envelope, which the building prior to building permits, the building, the secondary dwelling in a different location when it was previously approved, the pushing the, potential building coverage issue. We just think that it all goes to the ask forgiveness rather than permission sort of attitude that seems to be the basis of the construction that's ongoing.
Yeah, okay.
Just to clarify though, my understanding from your letter in the file was that the building was moved because of MISA, and they had to reconfigure it based on some habitat for species that were on the property.
And that was the proposed garage, correct? That moved?
And then they had to, and then they submitted again to the HDC with the new location and reduced size
Right.
to
Is there
accommodate
anyone here
that.
representing the owner of the property?
Well, the building
hear
commissioner's here.
Oh, okay.
And so all we're being asked to do is whether we're gonna overturn what the building commissioner decided to do, how he's
Gotcha.
handling this, or whether we support and agree with the building commissioner and how he
Gotcha.
is proceeding with the project.
So just to clarify, the first location of the garage was on page 34 of the packet, and now it's on page 54 of our packet. Correct? That was because of MISA.
The garage was moved because of MISA. The pool house was moved for reasons that we.
I'm just trying to
Seems to be
get
a
the right
preference.
site plan, because there's a lot of them in here. so
There's a
I'm
lot of
trying-
paperwork.
Yeah, I'm
You
trying to
are
figure out
correct.
which plan is actually the plan.
I think this one is, so this one is,
Yeah.
it says
Is there a
reduce
way
size,
you could kind of
revised
repeat that?
version
What-
of
what is the
previous COA.
timeline of
That's
the
54.
plans?
Yeah, okay.
and
That's
all
what I
that.
have. Okay, great.
Not clear about what was approved, when the plans existed.
So let's,
Is there a timeline here?
yes, so we're gonna hear from the building commissioner. I think will be the best person to present that part of it to us.
Okay.
Well, yeah, can I just ask a couple questions?
Yeah, sure.
then? When did they get through the HDC?
Originally, they went to HDC. I believe it might even have been prior to the current owner's purchase of the property. I believe it was, I want to say 2020 or 2021. It was a while ago.
I think it was November 15th, 2019 was when the
Okay, so-
original
Thank you.
COA was issued.
Okay, 2019 HDC, and that was for the main house? Or all the
That was for
buildings?
all of
I
them, I
believe it was
think.
all of them.
Okay, so they had HDC approval and plenty of time to get a building permit. It's not like they got HDC after they started construction.
Correct.
Okay. Oh, here it is, yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to see, but
It's hard to see,
it's
yeah.
stamped somewhere that it was 11/15,
Okay.
so.
Okay.
Okay. Mr. Murphy, do you want to run us through your department's interaction on this?
Yeah, thank you. Paul Murphy, Building Commissioner for the town of Nantucket. So this is really all sizzle and no steak. What this is about, there were two issues here. The first one was that the property owner put foundations in without the benefit of a building permit. Okay, when I became aware of that, I reached out to the property owner. I said, you have to stop and you have to come in and obtain your proper permits. He said, okay, no problem, I'll do it. So when he came in with his building permits, he was charged 4 times the normal fee for those permits. So I'm not sure where we're getting the $1,000 from that the attorney was alluding to, but I'm gonna guess that it was probably an $8,000 fee times 4, so they probably paid another $24,000 than they should have paid. So I think that's, that's certainly, that's certainly an appropriate, or it surpasses the $300 a day for each day that the violation exists by many thousands of dollars. So, I don't know why at this point the attorney would like these people fined after the fact. I think that's what she was asking the board to do. And the second thing was the secondary dwelling approval was obtained in the first instance, not in the second instance. But the planning board only looks at access, and for me to stop the job over the applicant not having gone back to the planning board for the new location, I didn't think was appropriate. They had already paid $24,000 in fines. It's the secondary dwelling approval is almost administrative if there's no access issues. There was no access issues in the first instance. So I felt that what I did was appropriate under the circumstances. We fixed the building permit issue, and we fixed the planning board issue. That's really it. So.
Can I ask clarity on the fines?
Sure.
This is how much they are. So the first one, sorry, I was just doing the math. The first one was 18,168, 6,764, and 4,288.
So
They're in our packet.
Okay, but in the staff report, the 6764 is not the total.
No, that's just for one of them. The pool house was 4,200 or almost 4,300. There was a $50 just for the zoning shed, $67.64 for the garage, and the new main dwelling was $18,160. Page 20, 21, 22, and 23.
Yeah.
So I was just doing some quick math on that.
Yeah,
but I
it's
didn't
like
finish.
$29,000, $30,000.
Yeah, so it's pretty significant.
It's significant. It's more than the 6,000 that was in the staff
Yeah.
report. Okay.
So
Michael?
how were those fees determined?
Hold on a second, Jim. Michael had a comment.
That's all
Okay.
right. Question. Are you required to charge $300 a day, or you may charge up to $300 a day?
Always discretionary.
Okay, thank you.
I think that's a good question, though. How are these fees determined? Because the original building, so presumably these permits would have cost these figures divided by 4.
Exactly. So I don't remember the math on it, but I know it was many, many thousands of dollars more than it should have been.
Yeah, it's 4 times. what it
Yeah,
is.
and
Why was it more than it should have been? I mean, it's just arbitrary what was charged?
No.
No.
I think,
Part of the deal.
Yeah,
You build
so,
without a permit, you pay.
You can buy your, okay.
Yeah.
I didn't,
But it's
that's
your
crazy.
discretion.
I hope,
so in our
is that the
fee,
law?
in our fee structure,
Yeah.
if you're commencing work without a building permit, it's 4 times the fee. And on some of these big,
Okay.
on some of these big builds, it's a lot of money.
And do we know when when the foundations were put in?
I don't because, they were put in without the benefit of a permit.
well, there
Was
were
it
some
prior to
photos.
HDC?
No,
No.
there are photos in the packet on pages 16 and 17 that are dated July 13th that show foundations, and the permits weren't issued till the end of July. And then there was a reference to a photo of August 1st, which was attached to a letter, which I didn't have in my packet, from one of the Pierce Atwood letters. It says something about a photo of the state of construction taken on August 1st is attached to this letter.
I have a question. Is this what it looks like right now? What's happened between July 29th and right now?
I'm not sure, I haven't been to the site.
But have they been, does anybody know if they're actively working on it?
Oh, I would assume so, it's a big
Okay,
build.
all right.
Okay.
Okay.
They're eligible to do it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No,
Once they got their
I didn't,
permits.
right.
So was there, my question, I had a couple of questions. So the permits have issued, there's no, the applicant has said that they want the owner to comply with the zoning requirements. As far as you know, the plans that were I mean, obviously, the building permit's issued, so there was no flags for zoning issues, or it's been through HDC. Was there, as far as we know, the plans that they have and that everything they've applied for is compliant with zoning.
Definitely.
If it's not, once they submit their as-built for a CO, it'll get flagged and they'll end up back here.
Right. You know, as the board knows, these surveyors and engineers are very, very wise to this stuff. They're not going to locate these buildings, you know,
Properly.
in the wrong location.
I have a question for Leslie. The difference between a garage apartment and a secondary dwelling in terms of your review is pretty much the same. They both generally go on a consent agenda. It's not like one has more discussion than the other.
No, they both go on a consent agenda for the planning board to approve.
So the getting the new determination as a secondary dwelling instead of a garage apartment would have been pretty benign,
I
yeah.
mean, the board does not discuss the applications individually unless they have a concern, so staff makes their recommendation. In both cases, the boards are only reviewing the secondary dwelling or the garage apartment for access requirements, so they're not generally concerned about where the structure's sited on the building, on the site.
And both of these had adequate access and were
Yes.
approved? Okay. Okay.
Did the second one end up getting approved as a secondary dwelling? Did the application end up getting approved as a secondary dwelling at some point?
I don't recall specifically if they applied for a secondary dwelling or a garage apartment. Someone else does those staff reviews,
Okay,
but they did get approval.
yeah, for one. We know they got approved for the garage apartments. The question is just whether or not they got the second, and whether or not it matters. Would you guys?
It's the same review,
So it
so
wouldn't really
it
matter.
wouldn't really matter.
Okay.
So, Paul, we kind of went off, you had said there were two things. The first things was the foundations without the permit, which you talked to him, he got the permits, you charged him 4 times for not having them, and then was there a second?
Yeah, just the fact that he hadn't gone back to the planning board to get the secondary dwelling approval. And they now have it, and, you know, it was, you know, there's no violations of the zoning code at all.
Okay.
So can I ask you, under what basis are you appealing these building permits?
We believe that the pool house is an inappropriate tertiary dwelling or masquerading as one at this point.
So that would be the only permit you'd be appealing?
We still have concerns about the building coverage ratio. I understand that that is not something that's being reviewed at the moment, but you also know that there is a limited period of time for somebody to appeal a building permit, and our clients felt that they had to exercise their rights to voice their concerns at this point because, you know, we're precluded from doing so down the road if we don't initially.
And they do not have tertiary dwelling approval for the pool house?
Not that I'm aware of.
So that is theoretically a violation at this point?
Well, if it's actually a tertiary dwelling, but again, I mean, the building
Well, they're showing
inspectors
bedrooms in the plans,
will be there.
yeah.
I think, you know, that's something that could get flagged at a later time.
Right.
And then enforcement action would be taken by the building inspector or the zoning
Right.
enforcement officer if that's
So
the case.
they're on notice that they do not have permission to build a tertiary, or whatever, to not build a tertiary dwelling, or that they need approval. And if they continue, it's at their own risk. And if it's flagged and they can't do it and they don't get approval, they'll have to rip out the bedrooms, right? I mean, and does that come, that wouldn't come to, does that come to us?
Well, I have one.
I'm just curious because if this, so the fact that this is happening right now and there's this discussion, if there are issues later that come back before us, personally, and just one person, I don't see myself being very flexible since this is all being discussed now and the property owner is very aware that that we are all aware of these concerns.
Well, and my one concern is, I'd be curious about the Board of Health. I mean, the only question is, particularly with this building, you know, the Board of Health has been very difficult to get through these days, the way they count everything as a bedroom, even if it has no windows, if it's bigger than 70 square feet. So, I haven't looked at the septic capacity I mean, that would be just another concern with this third building.
But again, I think, I don't know that that's anything for us to do now. It's something
No,
that
maybe
these
not.
people
The only
need to
problem is
be.
that these are all labeled as bedrooms on the drawing, so
And who-
potentially are in the building department file.
Right.
So those should be
Defined.
defined, because this, if it quacks like a duck, it's a duck.
I
This looks like
100%
a
agree with
dwelling.
you, but again, if it had come before us, like it was in the setback, or it was a pre-existing non-conforming, or something where we didn't have any,
Can we recommend that the building department look into it further now rather than later?
Yeah.
sure.
So, Paul,
I
I have a
mean-
question for Paul. So I know that they can't go on the property to verify this, but is there not a process for you if they believe these things have gone awry, that you can stop
Head them off.
what they're asking?
Yeah,
or-
definitely. It's called the final inspection.
Okay,
So-
so only at the final inspection would you make that determination and not issue a?
Yeah, they wouldn't get an occupancy permit till they made the alteration.
At the final
It's not,
inspection?
it's
or
not
what
that
about at the-
uncommon.
What about the rough inspection? That's when there's rough plumbing, rough electrical, and you know if there are bathrooms.
That's- I
And
think it's-
why would we wait, why would you wait till the final?
Well, I mean, a cabana can have plumbing in it.
Yeah, I think it's just specific to this building because it has two separate rooms that are labeled
Bed-
bedroom one,
bed-
bedroom two, and then a kitchen area and a living
Yeah.
room. Unfortunately, the way it's shown on these drawings is a little too, obviously a dwelling.
Yeah.
So
Well,
I
and
think they
it's-
either need to get tertiary dwelling approval, or they need to submit to you another set of drawings that basically says, we're not building these walls.
Sure. They
then
could turn that into a barn.
Yeah, they can have bathrooms,
Yeah. Right.
it's not against, but, and I'd also just be curious about and we don't have that information, it's the Board of Health review on the site. How many bedrooms is the septic system good for? How many, and looking at that, because that would be the other defining factor, is whether or not these can even be bedrooms. Or separate spaces.
Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming it had a health department sign off. I haven't looked at
Yeah.
the file lately, but
Yeah, that would be, again, I don't know that there's anything that the building department did out of, that's not a typical review, it just, it seems like there might be a couple of little holes to break a peek
Yeah,
at.
since it's a flagged project, it might be something that you need to look into
Um,
further.
I have another question for Paul.
Hold on 1 second. Yes,
I just want to point out, unless there's something in the packet that I'm missing, the letters from Pierce Atwood don't address a tertiary dwelling at all. It's only I heard her say it, but
I submitted a letter last week.
The
Which one was
newest
that?
one, maybe.
I read,
Is it the one that came via email? Yeah, with your letterhead at the top.
Yes.
it's like page
Oh, yeah, I
12,
saw it.
13, and 14. No, sorry.
No, it's-
Page, this
mine-
wasn't a page, I just stuck it in. the
It's
packet.
new, yeah.
oh, it's not in the packet.
No, it's
No.
dated October 7th.
Okay,
Do you want, I have it here, do you want to look at it?
You want a copy? Yeah, it's
sure, because the original ones only
Here.
talk about a second
Here, I'll give you
dwelling.
mine, 'cause I marked it up where it's classified.
It's pretty.
Oh, this one. Oh, perfect, thanks.
And then this was.
And it could be that the drawings in the building department file aren't the ones that are in here, because the HGC requirement, they don't stamp the floor plan. They only stamp the elevations, so oftentimes we submit our own floor plans with the dimensions and everything. So it could be that the HGC approval for the floor plans isn't what is in the building department file or went to the Board of Health.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think.
That's hard to track that because,
I think if this pool house with these bedrooms, the way that it's drawn, I think, just based on when I saw it, obviously you saw it, like, we all were like, whoa, this is very, I
Much
feel
a
like the other boards would have had the
dwelling.
same reaction to be like, bedrooms in this pool house are,
yeah,
Makes
the
it
HGC
dwelling.
never would have looked at that.
that's
though.
not their,
That's not their purview, they're only looking at the exterior part of the
Mhm.
building, so you could call it a
But I get what you're saying, that it could be on this and not the one in the in
Not
the
the one
building.
that Paul reviewed.
Yeah. And we don't know that.
We don't know that, because we don't have the applications that went along with these building permits, so.
Right. Well, because we only have the,
HGC.
no, I mean, we only have we don't have the property owner's not
Right.
presenting, because they're not even a party to this. It's just the building. and
Yeah.
Paul, on their concern about, the mean grade being changed, how would you verify that at the time of inspection?
Well, we don't have a cut and fill bylaw, so you're allowed to manipulate your grades. Cut, fill, whatever.
In all due respect to.
There is a bylaw.
Steve Ed Tool,
No, there is a bylaw.
I thought.
But I thought the bylaw, we've had this issue before, and I had the same question when I read it. I thought that the issue was that and Marcus spoke to this before we had, I think Attorney Cohen, you were representing on this with maybe Jay Hanley, maybe?
Yeah, for the one
And
behind
there,
yeah.
I forget what property it was, but I thought that it's sort of vague, and that it was at the time, like it was the grade at the time, and whatever that time was, you could fill until that.
Well, my understanding of it, and, and how we try to obey it is, you take the question is if you buy a site and then 5 years later, you've filled it, and then you go to build, what is the existing grade? Is it from when you bought it, but in general, if you have a site, if you take the existing grade, if you fill, you have to height average between your pre-existing fill grade and your fill, and take your height from there. So you basically lose half your fill to building height. Now, I don't, usually if we need to be careful about it, we have a surveyor certified that it's going to meet those requirements.
I agree with Lisa, but I also think that if you hired 4 different surveyors, you could get 4 different answers.
It's a very complex,
Yeah, there's no.
calculation, particularly if the grade, you're only filling a foot on one side and you're filling 4 feet on the other, you gotta average that over, it's taking 4 feet off the building, not 10 feet off the building, so it is complicated, but, I don't, the only time that I've ever seen it really questioned or enforced is, frankly, is if a neighbor's asks, and then you kind of work backwards, but it doesn't happen much, I mean.
I guess my concern, to me, existing grade makes sense to me, the plain meaning. And so if I go ahead and put, let's take it to an extreme, 5 stories of fill in, you're saying that it might be okay to build on that as long as it meets that timeframe. And I don't think that's the intent.
I don't think that's the intent.
No,
but I
that's
think-
not the intent of the bylaw. The bylaw, again, I think what we got into in the conversation was about when does that existing grade
Right,
start?
right,
That's the question.
Right. Right.
Because
Where's
we
the
were talking
baseline
about,
determined?
we were talking about something that was like out in Nantucket, I remember.
Yeah.
It wasn't even
Do you
as-
remember? It was like really sloped, right? And so I think it was that kind of
Yeah,
issue.
and then they had come in at some point and filled the whole subdivision.
Yeah.
So it was a question of where do you
Where do
take
you start,
existing
right?
grade?
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay, thanks, Steve.
So, yeah, I mean, obviously, I don't have any interest in this case, but I do recall what you're talking about, and I had actually challenged, brought in opposition to a permit that had been handled, and I believe that the determination that was made by the building commissioner, which is, I think, the understanding of the surveying community at the time, and I think the legal community, is that existing grade is set at the time the building permit is applied for, so that you can manipulate your grade if you have vacant land, but once you apply for a building permit, you're setting that. And if you have a lot that has existing structures on it, then you are basically dealing with that. So there is some, free bite at the apple with vacant land. And of course, the check and balance on that is that you couldn't add 5 stories of fill because the HDC would never let you build on a plateau like that. And that's not in the zoning bylaw, but it's a reality. So that is my, understanding of that case that I lost, so I remember.
Thank you.
And, is it your opinion that they brought fill in after the building permit was applied for?
Well, given that they applied for the building permit significantly after they started construction, I think the fill came in before, but I to be perfectly honest, I'm not 100% sure.
And these pictures don't show the fill because looks like the foundations are just stripped in the photos that we have. Because they also talk about these retaining walls along the property line that are potentially in violation. Do those have a building permit?
I'm not aware of one, but I don't know if one was required either.
Well, lately, I think, at least on a project that we did, we were asked to submit, after the fact, building permit application for the retaining walls, because they were significant.
Great.
So, I don't know, we do it now, but. if
This
we-
one, I didn't think I couldn't, well, so what is it? It's 4 feet?
4 feet.
4 feet,
Yeah.
yeah, not including the footing, 4 feet from, I think. from the-
Exposed.
Yeah, 4 feet exposed.
If I could add to that,
Oh,
This one?
Yeah.
Paul wanted to add something, Susan.
Sorry?
Paul
Oh,
wanted to
yeah,
add
go
something.
ahead, Paul.
so we don't separately permit retaining walls on a project. If somebody wants to build a retaining wall, a standalone retaining wall, we might permit that. But when it's taken on the whole, the entire build and there's some retaining walls, they're never separately broken out and separately permittable items ever. So-
I should remember that, because we just submitted some.
Yeah,
I think we were requested to do these after the fact in Monomoy, and I don't remember, it would have been like 18 months ago. I don't remember who the inspector was that came out and said these need to be permitted. But it was done, we didn't get them when we started the construction, it was after the fact.
yeah, I consider that part of the civil engineering of the project, and it's part of the grading, and it's all inclusive of the building permit. I never break them out separately.
Okay.
Sometimes engineers will submit a building permit for a retaining wall, I'll issue it, but it's all part of the whole project that's undertaken by, the civil engineers to get the grades right.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I have a question for Leslie. So
Okay.
when when this is appealed, does the property owner get notified on this?
Yes, they do get notified,
But they have no obligation to show up to the hearing? okay?
correct. It's at their discretion.
A lot of these questions could be answered over here.
I don't believe we heard from the owner or a representative or anyone.
So, but well, I guess they could provide some information, but,
Can we go back to the tertiary dwelling for a second?
Sure.
On page 76, there's the plan that was stamped approved by the HDC does not show bedrooms.
Oh, which one am I looking at that shows bedrooms?
That was on page 73.
And what was that for, submitted?
studio, it's the same thing. It's the same thing as like, we had another one, where remember they were doing a duplex, and one they labeled bedroom and one they labeled bonus room or
No, This one,
something.
it appears that they removed some of the walls and created open spaces.
Oh, right, I see what you mean. It looks more
Oh,
like
it's on
a,
73,
On page 76.
76.
73 has the bedroom and the
73
bedroom,
has the
pool
bedroom.
house.
Oh, they made the openings bigger. Yeah.
so this one was 2/16/22.
Well, as I said, they're not required to submit the building, the HGC drawings or.
Yeah, but this is later. This page 76
Is later?
is,
I don't
no,
know.
76 is stamped approved by the HDC, and that's 10/15/2019. 73 is not stamped, but this is the one that shows the bedrooms, and this one is 2/16 or something, 2022. So the more recent one shows the bedrooms, the bedroom doors.
Right. Yep, because on 73, you
Sorry.
see below it,
the previous.
Are the wider openings.
Yeah.
Yeah, so on
So,
the
That's
22,
the old, and this is the new.
the doors that go out to the
So you're right.
bluestone walkway are now windows.
They made some revisions, so maybe maybe they were required by the Board of Health to make some changes to the floor plan. And then they went back to the HGC later, showing the bedrooms with the architectural changes, I'm not sure.
Yeah, so the one that's, the 2019 one doesn't have the outdoor shower.
But the pool house has a building permit, is that true? Pool house has a
Mhm.
building.
Pool house.
Yeah,
How
everything
does
has a
it dwell
building
with the
permit on
pool
the
house?
project.
So in the Esposito's, is that right, Esposito's letter, it says they think that the pool house and retaining wall are being constructed within the 20-foot setback, but if they, that's on page 13, the last paragraph. If they were, I wonder what stage it's at. I just wonder if it's in the setback since they brought it up, or is that
I mean,
Just-
it doesn't show to be in the setback on the site
on the plan, but
Yeah.
they're saying that they think it's being built in the setback. And then
I mean, the
they'll
hard part
ask for
is-
forgiveness.
Yeah, I guess it's such a hard thing, because how do you, I mean, the building department can't
Police every single,
like, go out and measure foundations.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not very.
Right.
Right.
But it isn't an issue till it's an issue, but you're right, if they were to come to us,
yeah.
If they build
afterwards.
in the setback, if they come back and build in the setback after all of this, I think it will be the straw that breaks the camel's back for me as far as saying, you know,
Yeah, I mean,
forgiveness. I
the
mean,
fact that they went ahead without a building permit is,
yeah,
I mean,
Not
just,
I wouldn't want to be anticipating anything like that, because they're here for another reason. But there's been a lot of possible.
yeah,
mhm.
speculation.
Speculation, and we have no.
I
Speculation.
have a question for the appellant, and your clients. I'm sorry, I can't remember your name, first name.
Kathleen. Yeah, my clients are the John and Chantel Esposito, and I'm Kathleen Heyer.
Kathleen, thank you. Are they direct abutters?
They are.
They are. View has nothing to do with this, I assume. Loss of view.
Not particularly. It's the encroachment into the setback is really more of a density issue than a view issue. And to be honest, my client's intent is not to prevent the owners from moving forward with a project on their own property. It's just to make sure that they're complying with the terms of the bylaw.
Okay. Because it's just unusual to presume that they're breaking the bylaw without any in proof of it.
Well, respectfully, they did begin building without a
I-
permit, which is a violation of the
I agree.
bylaw.
There's no question about that.
And there have been other interactions. My clients have been there. They've watched it go up, and they are unable to go on the property and measure, but it looks like I said, everything is right at the edge of what may possibly be permitted, to the point where it looks like, is that possible to come that close to the line and not go over? And my clients are concerned, especially given the history of the building on the site.
I'm fine with that. I would say that I don't recommend that anyone build within 6 inches of the setback. It's done all the time, and on occasion, they end up back here. And they're not treated very well when they come back.
We have building permit applications.
So, that's all I have to say.
So,
we did.
so it seems to me that the concerns that you had, the meat of the concern, an actionable concern, was that there was no permits issued and they began work. That part of it has been addressed. The permits, they were fined and the permits have been issued. We can't really do anything to we can't really manage their project to ensure that during the project, they don't make a violation, but they have to follow the bylaw. They have to meet the zoning requirements. And like Michael said, if they don't, it'll get flagged and they'll be back here to figure that out.
Oh, and we certainly understand that, and it's, we're not suggesting that the building inspector needs to take his valuable time and go out and, measure to the inch every time somebody pours a foundation. That's clearly unreasonable. But just given the number of what look like issues here, and that, we still believe that the building permit for the pool house was improperly issued because it is a tertiary dwelling, and it does not have, it doesn't meet the definition of a tertiary dwelling, but it also doesn't have any zoning relief for that.
But I think at this point, it's not a tertiary dwelling yet. I mean,
And
there's
it
two
will,
plans floating around. We're
Yeah.
not sure what they're building, but I don't know that I see anything appealable to the building inspector.
I mean, admittedly, it's a somewhat awkward situation. We are also cognizant of the case law that says if we don't appeal the building permit and we seek enforcement later on, we're barred from moving forward with that. So we are protecting our rights to a certain extent by making this appeal.
Understood.
But because of their track record and how they have violated so many rules so far, I think the abutter is doing the homeowner a favor by saying, hey, you're in the setback, we think. You should check that out, neighbor.
Yeah, I'm watching.
I'm watching you.
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
would say,
I don't know what action we can take, but just us having knowledge of these people with a bad track record possibly continuing to break the rules, is what are we able to do, or what can the building department do? Nothing until it's done?
well,
don't-
I mean, if there's another violation that the neighbor sees that they can bring to someone's attention, the zoning enforcement officer, then, or the building commissioner, then
Yeah.
yes. Otherwise, like every other project, things move and change, and at the end, if they have to provide an as-built to get a CO, they have to do final inspections, and if they're not in compliance with the HDC approved plans, with the zoning regulations, with the building permits, with any of that,
Okay.
or septic or whatever, then they're gonna have to answer for that,
Right.
so.
Okay.
And if they end up back here,
It isn't going to be pretty.
but hopefully they don't. And like Michael said, we don't want to assume that just because someone made a mistake that they're going to continue that pattern.
I'm going under the assumption that they have a licensed surveyor of the property that's gonna do his job.
Yeah,
And, maybe there's an error. Those happen. We all
Like
know that.
builder error,
Builder,
possibly,
or sometimes, the
foundation
foundation goes on the
pour.
wrong side of
Yeah,
the
no, I
pin,
know.
I mean,
Yeah.
stuff does happen, but I
Right,
have
they
to
may
say
want
that
to check
if-
it out, but,
yeah.
um,
So at this
okay.
point, I think what we can do is you've made us aware, you're preserving your right. The building department has acted in their capacity. Mr. Murphy's telling us there's no open, actionable zoning violation. So unless anyone has any more questions or comments, or anyone else in the audience wants to speak, I would ask for a motion.
I'll make a motion to deny the appeal. Is that how?
Do we want to
the
deny the
language?
appeal or
I think-
uphold the building commissioners?
Uphold the building commissioner?
Okay,
Uphold the,
Yeah.
okay, uphold the building commissioner.
okay. So,
Michael, did you want to say something?
No,
No.
no, that's fine.
okay, so Lisa has made the motion to uphold the building commissioner's decision. Would someone like to second that motion?
Second.
Okay, Michael has seconded. I'm going to go from Elisa over, just because Mark was a little late coming in, so, so all those in favor of upholding the building commissioner's decision, say aye.
Aye.
Is that unanimous? A nay, okay.
one day.
Okay, so that passes 4-1. Thank you. Thank you
Thank you.
both for coming in. Okay, so we are going to move on next to,
Yep.
we're gonna move on to, another, sorry, now I've made it, okay. Sorry, we're going to move on to application 13-22, Brian and Lori Ryder, 3.5 Mary Ann Drive. Attorney Michael Wilson is presenting for the applicant. Mr. Wilson, or sorry, Attorney Wilson, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen of the board. Michael Wilson on behalf of Lori and Brian Ryder. Mr. Ryder is here. Your locus is at 3.5 Mary Ann Drive. It's on the north side of Old South Road as you come close to the Airport Road intersection. About halfway down, Mr. Ryder owns the property, which is the subject of this variance request, as well as the property across the street, which is the home location of Ryder Electric. The building across the street, he's hoping to and has the desire to put in an above garage apartment. We have a 2-bay garage with space that is unfinished, and the intent is to have housing for his employee, one of his employees. So with the second means of egress and the primary means of egress being contained within the structure itself, within the garage bay structure, this second means of egress is proposed to be located on the back or the east side of the building, which you have photos in your packet depicting. It's on the back side. The property is bounded on 3 sides by fence, and what you have is a property that was in the RC2 zone when the building was constructed in 2010, but it has since changed, which has reduced or increased the rear setback from 5 to 10. This second means of egress would put, if you agree and approve, would put the stair at 6.7 rather than the 10 that's required, which is triggering the variance relief we're requesting. That's a summary of what we're requesting.
Too bad.
And, sorry, Michael, I don't know if you said this in your, but the rear, the setback's 5 and
It was 5 and 5 in RC2, but now it is 5 and 10 for the rear for the CTEC.
And the building is 6.7 feet away from the rear.
No, that would be the closest location that the outside of the stairwell would be. The building is fully compliant. It is just the exterior stair which would provide the second means of egress.
Okay. And we have a letter in our packet from Mrs. Bunting, who's a abutter directly behind you.
Correct.
In support.
And that would have been the person who would be most visually impacted or audibly impacted, arguably, from the use of the stairwell. So we felt it important to be a good neighbor and reach out. She's comfortable with the proposal. We also went to the HDC. It was a matter that was, I think Leslie can confirm which date, but it went on consent and it was approved for the stair location.
So before the zoning change in that area, the most recent zoning change, these stairs would have been in compliance?
Yes, and in fact, in 2010, had he had the resources, this was the concept for the build-out of the building, it would be a pre-existing non-conforming now once the CTEC zone imposed the 10-foot, because had the stair been put in when he built it in 2010, it would have been compliant within the 5-foot setback that applied at the time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I know you, is it all right if I ask, Mr.?
Yes, go ahead.
I noticed there's a lot of letters in support of this. Are all of the abutters in support of it?
I've not heard, and I don't believe you have anything in your packet from an abutter with the abutter notification process that had any concern with it. Certainly my client isn't a direct abutter across the street, so he's in favor.
Right.
Ms. Bunting, who's the direct abutter behind, who would be the most impacted by this. If you take a look at the photos we've provided for both the north and south sides of the building, this is a semi-commercial neighborhood, and both of those structures on either side have nice tall fences. The request is if anybody didn't like the idea.
No, I was, I actually was looking, I noticed a lot of letters in support, but I don't know exactly where they live, whether, they gave their addresses, but I didn't know if they touched the property or not. And
For the butter notification, I think the scope might be, and I would defer to Leslie on how the abutter notifications are criteria for what you're asking.
No,
Well, I think
I'm-
Mr. Ryder just answered it. He
Yeah.
did, I think he said that both the person behind and on the left and the right, all three of them are okay with the proposed.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Is there any access right now to upstairs? Is that the interior access? There's no outside access right now.
There's no outside access. This is driven by the second means of egress requirement for the habitable space. The primary is going to be located within the garage itself. And once they locate that with the required landings and head height clearance, it's going to chew up a big amount of this inside of the garage. And then you also want to have the distance, the appropriate distance from the two means of egress so that they're not next to one another. And to have a meaningful living space above this, which is approximately 700 and some odd square feet. So it's a tight apartment.
I don't have any questions about this. I feel like this is a pretty straightforward request. Is there anyone in the audience that wanted to speak about this one? No. Do any of the board members have any questions for either the property owner or Attorney Wilson? Okay, then why don't we talk about how we, so.
Precedents for the neighborhood.
Okay, so this one is a variance, so it would require 4 positive votes to pass. So we need to make a finding that owing to circumstances related to the shape of the structure, and especially affecting such land or structures, but not affecting generally the zoning district in which it is located, a literal enforcement of the provisions of the bylaw would involve a substantial hardship, financial or otherwise, to the petitioner or appellant, and the desirable relief may be granted without substantial detriment to the public good and without nullifying or substantially derogating from the intent or purpose of such bylaw. I think I can get there because of the change in the zoning and the fact that the building's compliant and the fact that if he had built the stairs earlier, it would have been pre-existing non-conforming, but, and I think the hardship is there. I mean, we just need to say the word housing and.
Year-round housing for his employees.
Yeah, yeah,
So the alternative is shipping people over from the Cape or trying to rent another location on the island. So I think it checks that box in that respect.
I think it checks that box just by,
I motion to approve.
okay.
I second.
Okay. So all those in favor of granting the variance relief for these external stairs, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? Mark, are you aye or nay? Yea or nay?
I didn't know I was part of this.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You're part of it.
Aye.
All right, so that passes unanimously.
Thank you, Madam
Okay.
Chair, and thank you, members of
Thank
the board.
you. Okay, so moving on to our next one. We are going over to 13 Arkansas, which is application 14-22, Montana Heaven LLC. Attorney Cohen is presenting.
Page, please.
The page is 461. So it goes 461 to 474.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Mhm.
So who is my board, just so I know? It's,
So,
I'm seeing
I don't think
5,
we
right?
have any conflicts on this one. Elisa does have to leave at 1:45, so you can sit for it, but we could do it without. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We could do it without if you want to scoot, or you can stay.
Whatever. Okay, if I'm not going to be voting.
If
on
she's
it
not
in the
voting, she can
future-
still participate in the conversation, correct?
Yep, or you guys can make it really quick.
Yeah, we could go quick, and if she has to leave, she has to leave. but-
Yeah, let's just do
All
that.
right.
Whatever you want
I
me
do
to
miss
do.
my friend Eleanor, where I would always say, this is simple and straightforward, and then she would snicker and mock me.
Yes, wow.
Well,
So-
I'll do whatever.
Yeah, just
you-
stay for the
Okay.
conversation, and
All right.
if you have to go, and
Yeah,
if
yeah.
we will, you can still participate in the conversation without
Yeah,
being voted, without
gotcha.
voting, so you're good.
Okay.
Right. So This is relatively simple in the sense that the board has seen a number of these, and I think the board has developed a pretty good model of how to address them. I think you all know that the bylaw has 2 requirements for a pool in the VR district, which is the application here. The zoning, the lot has to meet the minimum square footage of the zoning district, which is 20,000 square feet. Here, the lot is 20,180 square feet, so it's a, bright line compliance. And there is also an addition requirement that the pool has to be a 20-foot setback. The pool and the equipment, have to be at a 20-foot setback instead of the 10-foot, which would be applicable to other structures under the zoning bylaw. And again, the plan before you shows that that is what is anticipated. This plan has HDC approval and is, otherwise ready to go. The board has a relatively standard set of conditions. My client is comfortable with those conditions. I'm happy to answer questions, and I'm happy to take a quick yes. Thank you.
I have one question.
Yeah, sure.
Lighting,
Yeah.
have you addressed that, or?
Well, so that's one of your conditions, that it has to be dark sky compliant. I think, Michael, you know that every pool itself has safety lighting inside it, and then the
I'm
landscape.
only talking about ground lighting.
Yeah.
And illumination from the building.
Yeah. Well, there's no landscape lighting plan included, and there's none sought at this time. And if the applicant wanted to put that in, it would have to be compliant under the order.
It's fine with me.
Yeah, it just references that the lighting shall be installed substantially as shown on the site plan provided. There's nothing shown, so there'll be no lighting.
Yep.
Right. They would have to, make a change for that.
Yeah, other than in the pool for safety.
Right.
Yeah.
What are the dimensions of the pool? I can't read it.
It looks like it's 28.6 times 15.
Yeah.
And there's for the landscape, they're just leaving the existing natural vegetation.
Yeah, this lot is significantly surrounded by natural vegetation, and there's no plan to take that out. And in fact, a lot of it is not on the property, so they wouldn't have the ability to anyway.
And then the regular setback is 10 feet, right?
Correct. Yeah.
So it has an automatic cover?
I'm not sure if that's what's shown, then it would. I don't know. That's not.
There's no fencing.
Yeah, that's what's making me
Let's
ask.
see, the HGC approval would normally note that, but I guess we don't have that.
So if there's no automatic cover, there has to be a fence.
Correct.
But if there is an automatic cover, you don't need a fence. And I'm just curious where the fence will go if there's not an automatic cover.
It can,
Yeah, I mean,
Just shown on the plan, it's not
yeah,
shown on the plan.
there's no fencing shown on the plan, so I assume that it would have an automatic cover or that it would have a fence. It's typically not an issue that the board has gotten involved with.
Just curious why it's not shown on the plan.
Typically, that would be addressed at the building permit stage, which we're not at yet. We need the zoning permit first. And of course, we'd need HDC approval if they decide to go ask for a fence.
well, right, the HGC approval will probably address that issue. It must be a
Yeah,
cover.
Okay.
yeah. I'm sorry, I don't know, but.
Yeah,
you-
I mean, they
wouldn't-
have to have one or the other, like,
It's-
whatever we
Right.
decide doesn't impact that, they'll have to
They'll have to do
do
it.
it.
Yeah.
That would be a pre-clearance issue at the building permit stage.
So there was one letter, right?
There were two. One is pretty extensive, the other
Yeah.
one was not that extensive, but it had, general concerns about, that the area is primarily populated with townhouses and modest cottages. concerns about the fragile coastline, conservation land, dark sky designation, ambitions, and ongoing concerns with the aquifer and water table.
Yeah.
They're saying they think it's ill-suited, they're concerned about noise. And then they have questions about, what are the steps that will be for enforcement? And, that's gonna be the neighbors, issuing complaints if they feel that there's violations of the noise bylaw or the lighting or,
Right.
so that's already built in.
Right.
So to build the pool, will they just be coming down the driveway, or will they be cutting through the natural vegetation?
You mean in the back?
Or how are they
Yeah.
accessing that area where they're gonna install the pool?
There's a clearance there now.
There is.
Yeah.
Yeah, they can go around it, it's to the right.
Oh, there it is.
I think they can go that.
You could go up the driveway or you could go through the middle. There's enough clearance there now.
But the existing vegetation is not gonna be disturbed around the,
Periphery? Yeah.
surrounding.
They could go in here, the driveway, and then go around to the right.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Because it looks like that other open porch thing is gonna have a roof on it.
You're correct.
So presumably they'll build the pool first before that structure goes in.
Yeah, that's right. That
I
cabana
just
pavilion
wonder-
would block the access.
Where's the driveway access?
Yeah,
Oh, the driveway comes in over here.
right here.
Yeah, that's right.
So would
So with all
you,
this natural vegetation, I just wonder if they're gonna cut through here, I mean, it matters, or will they just use the driveway?
Well, we could just make it
Yeah, we can just-
a requirement that they
Mhm.
use the driveway for construction access.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Are you, I'm sorry, Lisa, are you talking about the long access that goes out to the other road? Or you just
Here,
mean on
come,
the?
just come,
Yeah,
yeah,
come
come and
and
see
look.
what they're,
Exactly.
Yeah.
so the driveway is here,
Right.
and so therefore it's, whoops,
Sorry
sorry,
about that.
here.
Correct.
And my question is any of this natural vegetation that you just mentioned gonna be cut through to install the pool? Or, well,
Well, the pool's actually here. There's a building here that's a
oh,
garage.
right.
Yeah.
So, but we just said it has to be done from the site. They can't cut through. any
That's
of
what I
this.
don't want to
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah, we can
so we can say no disturbance of
The natural vegetation
natural
on
vegetation
the,
as shown on plan.
Yeah, so this long thing here is part of, it goes to a road, and there's no intent to cut that open. But there's a ton of room to go around the building this way, come here to go around. But the intent is to hold off on the unbuilt building in order to leave that direct
This is
access.
a road too, right?
Um,
Looks like a road, but I don't know.
No, that's a paper road, that's not open.
That's
So
not open.
They would access from the driveway.
They'd have to
Okay.
access from the
So
driveway.
if, I guess, we just talking to the microphone for the record, if the condition is that there be no construction cut and that the access be through the driveway, I think that's a reasonable condition.
We could
Okay.
add that.
yep, I like that.
So that would be condition,
And that'll
G?
address the abutters runoff, issue.
Okay. Was there someone in the audience who wanted to, okay, you can just identify yourself for the record at the microphone.
Hi, my name's Alicia. My husband Patrick Burnett and I own 52 Arkansas, which is a direct abutter. So our property looks directly across the street at theirs. So we've had kind of a firsthand look on the extensive renovations that they've done since midsummer of 2020. So they did, I guess the question is, this is Tristram's Landing. The part that we're in is the very kind of densely populated townhouse area, and this townhouse is part of a footing of several townhouses, and it's all very dense, kind of naturalized, simple sand road area. So I know these kinds of developments are very popular across the island, but this would be the first of its kind on Arkansas Avenue. And the work that they've done so far in the house is also the first of its kind on Arkansas Avenue. They did take down the original kind of tree-lined vegetation that was in front of their house. They installed sod and irrigation. They built an auxiliary dwelling. All of this was approved, but it's completely changed the look of that cottage with relation to all of the others. And adding this pool would now be an additional change to the area that we've not had to this point. There's a pool on Gooseneck Cove, which has caused a lot of trouble to the townhouses adjacent to it from noise and the fencing. The bigger issue is the water. Because this house is now using twice as much water as it used to, if they go ahead and use a pool, where is it going to come from? Each of the townhouses in our area has its own well, and we also have an IA system. Currently, my well is
Pool, no.
contaminated.
What is
That's
this?
the garage.
Oh, garage. Oh, this is the pool. Got it.
And so
Okay.
I have to get water from the town, and I have to hire a well consultant. So if they dig a pool, fill a pool, use even additional water from our very small aquifer, it just doesn't really fit. And setting a precedent for pools and outdoor kitchens and additional structures in a simple area that's already kind of pushing its limits for resources is just not a good idea.
Question, Amisha, is your water polluted, or does it have salt water in it?
So salt water has been found all around us. Our area does not yet have salt water. My water is polluted with E. coli.
Okay. And one thing we could condition this application on is that the applicant for the pool fill his pool with water from afar, like fire department. There's somebody on the island that actually fills pools and has the proper truck. So they come in and they fill it in 35 minutes rather than 2 days from the hose from the pump and the property.
Yeah. You know, the person that was here presenting first about 8 Fire Spring Road, that's a huge piece of property, and they're suing over potentially touching the abutting. The design for this pool touches each corner of the abutting. This noise of their filter will be heard by many, many families in a really small area. It's designed already as a resort complex at a super high density. Just introducing this kind of level of stress and noise and resource, it just doesn't seem like a good idea. I mean, if you are to pass it, most definitely they can't use our water. And most definitely they can't put up a lighting structure. There are no lighting structures on Arkansas Avenue or in Tristram's. It's completely dark sky. We also don't have air conditioning. None of those houses have air conditioning. The electrical draw for our area is low and not very good to begin with. We lose power all the time, right? You know, if we're going to convert Tristram's Landing into the luxury developments that you're seeing across the whole island, it's going to involve a huge influx of resource, from electrical to water to sewer to, you know, all kinds of things that I don't think we're in for. There are many large lots on city land that are being developed to be resort properties for high rental values. That's not where this property is located, and it seems it's undergoing, you know, a sale and a purchase. They're trying to take something that was quite simple, timeshare, you know, 2 blocks from the beach, and turn it into something that the area can't really sustain. And, you know, this one pool that's on Gooseneck has caused many of my neighbors a lot of distress. You know, and there's a pool on Starbuck now, and I know, you know, they're coming up, but those are different areas than the actual original development of Tristram's.
Yeah, I mean, go ahead, Michael.
You're aware that there was a zoning amendment 2 years ago or 3? For Mattocket
special
and
permit?
pools.
I think it was longer than that.
Maybe 5 or 6. Yeah.
Is it
Yeah,
that
5 or
long?
6.
Okay.
Yeah, because it was
Wow.
before COVID.
So otherwise, we wouldn't be here today, because you wouldn't have to get a special permit to put a pool in your neighborhood.
Yeah, it's interesting because my understanding was that the whole area was non-conforming. You know, I know Smith Point, you used to not be able to do anything there, and
Pre-existing.
as I understood it, our area was the same. So actually, when I just kind of found out about this and saw that all these HDC plans had been approved, you know, it was sort of the first that I'd heard that you could really transform the footprint, use of space, resource, number of bathrooms, all of those things in our small area.
Yeah. I mean, I was just going to say that, I'm sympathetic. Rode my mountain bike out there the other day, and it's definitely a different world out there. And it's sad that the whole island is transforming into this resort town with all these pools. But I don't know that we have, my understanding is we sort of have.
We can condition it, but if
We-
it meets those
If
two
it meets the
things-
requirements that are outlined in the zoning bylaw, we are required to approve it with conditions.
So there's another, I guess the issue is where the pool is placed, how it is touching all the abutter lines, where their mechanical will be, how loud it will be. Right now, it's very quiet. The only noise you hear in the summer is from the Nantucket Marine, and that's really far away. So we don't have mechanical noise in the neighborhood currently. And the issue is Arkansas is a private road that we pay a significant amount to grade every year. So this would really cause a lot of wear and tear. The irrigation system that they've already installed and the sod has already caused a lot of erosion because it's just running all summer. So
Well, we can certainly condition maybe repair to the road, right, as part of the conditions after. And just looking at the site plan, I don't see that it's touching, first of all, it's got a larger setback that is required for zoning. It's 20 feet versus 10, and there's only one corner that's 20 feet from the property line. So it doesn't appear to be touching all property lines, as you just noted. And the pool equipment is also 20 feet off of the abutting property, which meets the requirements of the zoning bylaw.
Okay, so the other thought that some of the neighbors had is that perhaps we could have more time to look at the plans as a group, so we could talk about coordinating more of a Arkansas Avenue.
I think your group might want to consider putting in some zoning bylaw changes that will change the approval process, because until that happens, I don't know that we've got a whole lot we can do if they meet those requirements.
I agree with Lisa. I think that's the right.
That's the grassroots way to do it.
So, but then it's on the neighbors to advocate for changes with lighting, noise, water, damage to the road, and additionally, rental of this unit for 12 people with an outdoor kitchen and party area. I think that just is a lot of stress on neighbors to now be advocating for themselves.
Yeah, I understand the process isn't great, but I'm not so sure we have any other way of addressing that until there's a zoning bylaw change.
The only other way would be if you have a Tristram's Landing Homeowners Association that has rules and regulations that you can then condition, you can make, new rules that there are no pools allowed in Tristram's Landing.
Right.
But until something like that happens, or there is no lighting, or whatever your requirements are, if there was a homeowners association, I have no idea, but our hands, the only thing that we can do is, we could only deny a special permit if it did not meet the setback requirement or the ground cover requirement. And this one meets both of those, so we can condition, but we really can't, we don't have the power to deny it.
So would you be able to condition it for lighting, noise, quality of the road, and also quality of the water? And
Yeah,
who's gonna
so
follow
our typical
their
conditions that we put on are that the construction should be in substantial conformity with the plan that's been submitted. The pool is not chemically treated between November 1st and May 1st of any year. All chemical treatments of the pool water stops 3 weeks prior to any drainage or discharge of the pool. If that is not feasible, the owner shall engage a professional company to discharge the pool water in a tanker and dispose of it at the wastewater treatment facility. If municipal water source is not available, the owner shall engage a professional company to fill the pool. And exterior lighting in the pool area shall be in conformity with the provisions of the town code, turned off by 10 p.m. each night, downlit, and shall utilize low voltage lighting. We're also talking about potentially conditioning the construction access limited to the driveway. Again, bring in water from off-site.
Yeah, so that would
to
change
f-
condition
to f-
B.
To fit, yeah.
Yeah.
And then to repair and restore the road to its prior condition post-construction.
I don't know that we can address noise. I mean, noise other than what's in the bylaw.
Yeah, no,
What
there's,
we can do is we could require them to use the low-level noise pumps
yeah.
and,
Can we require it to
equipment.
be, some people have put their pool equipment, like, can we require it to be in, like,
inside a box.
Enclosure?
Yeah.
A soundproof enclosure?
Yeah.
mhm.
Well, I wouldn't say
But-
soundproof, but,
You are
Low.
sound
Insulated,
deadening.
yeah.
But you can't really quantify fun noise at the pool,
No.
no. Is that the kind of noise you're referring to? Is
No, the
like
mechanical noise is
okay.
really,
Okay, well,
it's
that
very,
we
it's
could
a
do.
really quiet area. There's no mechanical noise, like I said, unless you hear one of the pumps from the Nantucket Marine. Could you say that they are not allowed to construct any lighting, because it is a dark area and nobody else has lighting?
So the lighting would have to be in conformity with the plan they submitted, and there is no lighting on it other than the pool. There is safety lighting inside the pool, like in the water of the pool, that's required.
There's also a requirement in the building code for an outside door.
Mm-hmm.
Has to have a light next
Right.
to it,
Mhm.
which it probably already does.
Mhm.
Yeah.
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 But there's no landscape lighting
Yeah.
plan with uplighting and those kind of things, and which wouldn't be allowed anyway.
And
But
then-
I'm not concerned only with landscape lighting, I'm concerned also with like lighting, like on the deck or on the sides of the house shining onto the pool or anything like that. Like, there's no, the lighting that's required, that's existing now, a light over an exterior door that's required by code, like the safety lighting, but there's no additional,
It's nothing planned or requested.
okay.
They,
And we can't really speak to the lighting that's in this future structure that has the fireplace and the, I mean, that's,
I'm gonna say, we can change the condition to say the exterior lighting in the pool area shall be in conformity with the provisions, blah, 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 and safe, like, just limited to lighting required by code.
well, yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess that works. They'll
I mean,
need
if
lighting
there,
in that
Steve's saying
space,
there's
yeah.
no lighting, so just say limited to lighting, lighting required by code.
but the house already has some decorative lighting that was installed in their renovation this past year.
Yeah, that would remain. I mean, that's allowed.
What was that?
Decorative lighting, I mean, like, it's a sconce, so by.
No, they have a spotlights shining on their renovated chimney and a spotlight shining on their flagpole.
Well, if it's uplighting, those aren't allowed right now under
Okay,
zoning,
so they do have two of those.
You should look at, you can look at the bylaw, and those shouldn't, those are, I believe, right? You're not allowed to have any uplighting.
Except on flag.
You can have it on a flagpole? Okay.
And we do have a lighting bylaw, so if she has concerns about
They do,
existing
but
lighting,
that's
we have a lighting enforcement officer at Planning and Land Use Services. You can
Yeah.
look into that.
Well, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for your input.
Oh, there's somebody else.
Another gentleman.
Yep. Just if you can identify yourself for the
Will
record.
do. So thanks for the opportunity. Carrie McKenna, 22 Arkansas, so I'm not on a butter, but I'm in one of the townhouses, and full disclosure, I'm a Board of Health member, and I'm here speaking as a private citizen. So I'm going to probably, in some ways, it's not looks bad, but it's not that bad. Want to go through some of the points, and kind of, again, we have an unusual role in Arkansas Avenue in that we are the people who manage the road projects every year. So we're in contact with all the owners on a yearly basis to do get the funds and contract and set up the maintenance for the road. So we have a kind of a bigger picture of what Arkansas Avenue is, just besides the houses. I mean, obviously, we've been pushing Nantucket's known for its peaceful, quiet nature, the stunning skies and the sunsets and everything. But Arkansas Avenue is actually a very stable neighborhood that's evolved from being kind of like a seasonal rental to really we have, it's a year-round and mostly seasonal. So we have 18 year-round residents mostly in the townhouses, 15 that are seasonal, like that April to November type run. There's 11 that are managed by Mainstay, which is the timeshare. And what we've seen there is that a lot of those same families come back every year, that there is some rentals, but a lot of it really is the timeshare owners using their share. Which leaves 11 houses which are in various states. 2 are for sale, this being one of them, and some we just don't know for sure who's living there and what. But it is it's becoming over time. It's become a much more stable, becoming a year-round community. And I think as part of as each part of the islands evolve, that this is where this particular area is going. So I did looked at the zoning board's goals and promote the health, safety, convenience, morals, and general welfare of Nantucket's inhabitants, and to lessen the danger from fire, congestion, and to improve the town. And with health, even though I know that you're not the Board of Health, I'm the Board of Health, that in your purview is the issue of health in a more global sense. And I thought it was just yesterday that we watched the select board meeting, and one of the people right at the beginning talked about the concern they're having that there's a project off of Surfside that has 15 houses and 15 pools, and that their concern was something has to be done efforts had to be made to try to start reeling this in, because we're on very few places on our island are less than 2 miles from the most beautiful beaches in the world, just about. The 13 Arkansas Avenue is 3/8 of a mile from Tristram's Beach. So we're not talking about places that are away from recreational water use. All the properties on Arkansas are well water based. We don't have access to town water. Town water runs down Cambridge, runs down Starbuck. We don't have it. So when our wells go, as it has in Mr. Durio's case, that you now have to start bringing water in from town or some other source, and that seems to be a not healthy thing to do. The light and noise pollution, again, we have the dark skies just because everyone turns their lights off and there's just not much going on out there other than it's very peaceful and quiet. 13 Arkansas is unusual by that nature. It abuts 5 properties on its side of the road, and then you have 18 townhouses across the street whose driveway is directly across the road from 13 Arkansas. So the impact when you're talking about light and noise, you're not talking about houses spread out. You are talking about highly congested. And when you look at some of the overhead maps, you'll see the property. You can see the corners of some of the abutting houses as you go around. So there's setbacks, but they're close. And a 30 decibel noise level in Nantucket sounds a lot different than a 30 decibel noise in town because of the quiet nature. I look at it is on the market right now. The selling listing on Realtor.com is 3-bedroom structure, including the cottage. So under the current short-term regulations, the capacity would be 3 times 2 is 6 plus 2 is 8. The rental listing indicates 4 bedrooms with the capacity for 12. It's really a gross inconsistency, non-short-term rental conforming, and kind of sends a message of this is more for partying and a fun house. The positive thing is the current owner, Guy Wazinski, he has been supportive. He's not an owner that we've had to chase for payment for road. Every year the invoice goes out, and he has paid that right away, and has been supportive of those efforts. So I'm not against Guy. There's nothing there that I have against him or anybody else. I think it's just more the disruption of the nature of this kind of activity. And so really it's kind of like my concern, and I think I expressed for some, like Alice and Ms. Pollards, who submitted a letter, is that one neighbor pretty much is setting the tone, essentially having the power to change the feeling and the tone of what is a very stable neighborhood. And you've kind of indicated that you can't reject it, but you can't put it into continuance since there is no lighting plan. A lot of discussion about it. This was done last year with the Goose Cove property, where neighbors expressed, and it's like, well, yeah, lighting is important, but there's no plan. as listening to some of the other discussions, a plan and whether it's actually done can be two different things. Until someone does something after the fact, it might be too late. We would like to see a plan in place. If they're responsible for the road, maintaining it, I would like it to be done in conjunction with the road work that is being done already, so we don't have someone throwing sand for 100 feet and the rest of us are putting down ACPAC, and you're really building up the road. So there's a lot, it's not just, I would like to have the board put at least into continuance so that we can get a lighting plan set up. I am concerned, you gotta say, they gotta put a cover on or fencing. We don't know what they're doing. I mean, these are important, and also in that area, during the summer, you have a lot of families with lots of kids that are roaming, riding their bikes. Access to a pool, the only pool on Arkansas Avenue, may pose a danger. I'd like to know in advance what safety features are in place. Is there going to be an alarm in the pool? Someone falls in. There's a lot of things that could be done, and I don't like the idea of doing the free floating and ending up and seeing what happens, and it might be too late. I would like it not to have it happen at all. But you're right, we do know about the zoning, that you gotta change the zoning in order to make things really happen in the long run. But there's usually one that sets the fire, and in this case for Arkansas Avenue, it's this property. And if we can't stop it, can we at least have it retain the nature of the environment, be safe, be informative, as in the other application about the fire access, the one right before it. They went to the neighbors, and there was really a much more extensive reach out effort to explain what's going on. We're not getting that here at this point, but I would like that to go into continuance so we can get this information and we can maybe fine tune our questions rather than saying what's going on, we don't need a poll. So thank you for the opportunity to express, and thank you for volunteering to do this stuff.
Thank you for being on the Board of Health.
Hi. Okay, so just to be a little responsive, I do want to clarify, just because of the use of the townhouses, is that this is a freestanding single-family home. It's not one of the townhouses in the technical sense, but I think you guys know that. This is a very, very modest house. I think it's 850 square feet with a converted garage, so it's a 2-bedroom and a 1-bedroom. There has not been any massive development of this into some kind of, Monomoy, Pocomo, Squam, whatever. There's barely 1,000 square feet of development here. But, the point is taken that everything is changing and people don't like those changes. Some people don't like those changes. And that to some extent, when you're coming into the zoning board, it's to the board to make sure that appropriate conditions are put in place when someone qualifies for a permit. And I think that this board has done a great job in the past 5 or 6 years of coming up with a list of standard and sometimes unique conditions that deal with things like noise, lighting, distance to setbacks, water quality, all those kind of things. And I think that the neighbors' concerns, while legitimate, are also well addressed by the conditions that you use as your standard conditions and the couple that you've suggested here amongst yourselves. So I'm glad to see that the system, works. And of course, as the board has suggested, that if people are dissatisfied with the current regulatory system, they are welcome to go to town meeting to change it. There have been at least 3 or 4 pool bylaws that have passed in the past few years that have made pools, more restricted and prohibited them, and the same with hot tubs and spas. So, if that's what the neighborhood wants, then that's what the neighborhood should do. But it's not the current state of the law and regulations. So I'd ask the board to approve this permit because it qualifies, and I'd ask you to put in the robust set of conditions that you've already discussed that I think are more than appropriate to try and mitigate any, nuisances and health issues and those kind of things. Thank you.
So, as far as the lighting goes and the abutters request for a lighting plan, I mean, if we can ask for a lighting plan, but if the applicant is telling us that there's no additional lighting, I mean, Steve, I think you're gonna wanna have lighting, there's gonna be lighting.
Didn't we request,
There's a kitchen being installed.
well, that's under a building that would presumably be able to have lighting.
But I mean, there's this, right, there's the wood fire, this is being,
This is gonna be a structure.
so like, I just looked it up, I was just looking at the photos online, I'm for sure.
I mean,
I was gonna say, didn't we make, what's her name?
Yeah.
Elizabeth O'Rourke, no, not Elizabeth, Linda Williams come back with it.
Well, we did, and then what she did is she was like, there's no lighting, there's no lighting, there's no lighting, there's nothing to put on a plan, so.
Mhm.
So this, there's a flagpole with the lighting,
Mhm.
there's lighting, I guess, on this chimney.
Mhm.
So there's 2 lights here, and then this is the backyard.
Mhm.
Um,
But they haven't built.
yeah.
They
I mean,
haven't built
structure
the other
yet.
stuff, right, no, I know.
Yeah.
The other thing
Typically, the commission, the board would say that if you want additional lighting that's not proposed, that come back and ask for it. And that kind of condition, I think, is, more than appropriate if that's a concern of the board and the neighbors.
And that just puts the onus on us to have to come back and follow. Why can't you
It's
just?
Can
not
you
on-
just go to the, would you just go to the microphone so we don't have like?
No,
back and
that
forth?
would be a condition,
It's not in the
that,
setback.
the burden would be on the
No, it's
applicant to
not.
come back to the zoning board.
I understand, but by not addressing the entire project together, it puts the onus on all of the neighbors, many of whom aren't full-time residents, to keep up and to come back. It would be more respectful to everyone if there was just one time where we were looking at the entire project.
Well, I appreciate that, but, if you want to diligently be deeply involved, then you have to be diligently and deeply involved. It's not, people are allowed to develop their projects, their houses, any way they want, and frankly, most of what we're talking about here doesn't require any permit anywhere on Nantucket and doesn't require a permit from this board, but I think that, we want to try to be cooperative. Frankly, the situation is that this property is being sold. The current homeowner has no intent to do anything with it because they're selling it. I think that's already been stated that it's for sale. And they're selling it with a pool permit. If the person who buys it wants to come back and say, okay, well, we want to make changes, then that person is welcome to come before the board, and the neighbors are welcome to participate in that process or not. But if you ask me to come back with a lighting plan, I'm not going to, because there isn't one, because this owner isn't doing it.
Well, you don't have to put lighting in.
You don't have to put lighting in,
Right.
right? So there's no reason to delay for something that's not intended.
Well, that's
But-
what I was saying, like, I think that's what we did with Linda, like, we were holding her up, or we were asking her to provide a lighting plan, and she didn't provide one, but eventually, we just said, fine, then there is no lighting because you're not giving us a plan, so it is what
Yeah.
exists, and that's it, there's no
And-
additional.
Right, and so the zoning permit would say, if you so choose, that additional landscape lighting would be approved, through future permit of the board or not, which is a typical condition that this board puts in when people see changes that are in the future.
Question
You know,
for
it's not-
Leslie.
Yeah, sure.
Leslie, would, if they did, the new owner or the existing owner came back in for a lighting plan, would you renotice the abutters
Yes,
automatically?
yes.
Okay. So I hope that takes care of your concerns.
And I think we could put a specific thing that says no exterior landscape lighting is approved.
Mm-hmm.
Just make it,
Associated with the pool, because they can do landscape lighting around their lot if they're in accordance with the bylaws.
no exterior lighting associated with the pool. Yeah,
And I think you could add specific language that says a modification of the permit and a public hearing is required. So that way someone doesn't come forward later and say, oh, can you do a minor modification?
Mm-hmm.
so that would just change we could just add that in addition to D, which is the location of the pool, landscape, and the lighting shall be installed substantially as shown on the site plan provided, and then we could just say no exterior landscape lighting associated with the pool is approved with this application.
Yeah, I think that condition is, entirely appropriate and acceptable.
Yeah, and with Leslie's addition that if any lighting is to be, any lighting will need to be requested and will require a public hearing.
A public hearing, yeah, and that's fine too. I agree. There shouldn't be a minor modification exception that would not get public notice. That'd be fine.
You have one more
Yep.
question in the audience.
Yep.
Yeah, the microphone.
Okay, so-
So who's putting the pool in? Is it Guy or is it the seller? I mean, the buyer?
Sure, yeah, I mean,
I mean, who is the permit being issued to?
well, the permit would be issued to the applicant. It would be recorded on against the land, and it would run with the land, not with the owner.
Yeah.
And it would be sold as a property that has X and also includes a permit that I believe it's good for 3 years. So a purchaser could then exercise that permit or amend that permit or not use that permit.
And is it clear in the sale that any modification requires coming back? Because it's the plan that, we're submitting something, but that's not necessarily going to be done, because it's a third party now who's actually going to make final decisions
Well,
on
I
it.
think, I
So
think,
how is that handled?
Follows
with
the
our-
deed.
Yeah, the permit would, the new buyer would be limited to and subject to that special permit. That would be on the title. It'll be recorded on the land records.
the plan will be attached.
Okay,
Yeah, and so
it
then,
is tied to the deed and title and everything.
That's
and
right.
any but I guess, so the question is, any modification, they have to come back.
yeah.
Yeah.
Or they may decide, we want to live in Nantucket because we like it and it's dark and we're not gonna put a pool in. Like, I mean, who knows? That could happen too.
Right, we don't know what the buyer would choose. The second check and balance on that is that the building commissioner, before issuing a permit, would require that the plans be consistent with the zoning permit, and would also, and that's both up front and at the inspection at the end. And then, of course, if work is done after the inspection that's bothering people, one of the neighbors calls the Planning and Land Use Services Department and says, they put in lighting that's bothering us and they weren't supposed to. And the zoning officer would do an investigation and would issue an enforcement order. So there are at least 2 or 3 or 4 checks and balances. It's not entirely just, this is not the last step.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Lisa, what did you add to D?
I just wanted to be very clear that the no exterior landscape lighting associated with the pool is approved with this project. And I suppose you could just say if there are any modifications to this plan, further relief is required.
Yeah, I think you further relief with a public hearing.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Yes,
with
yeah.
a public hearing, okay, thank you.
Is anyone else interested in the low decibel pool equipment?
Yeah, so that was what I was adding on I. So, the pool equipment shall be, is that what we want to call it, low, is that what it's called, low decibel?
I think that's what it's called.
And do we want it insulated or and
Sure.
insulated to reduce?
It's probably a 4-foot fence.
Yeah, a fenced enclosure.
That's got some insulation on the inside, right?
Yeah. But, they will have to follow manufacturer's instructions in terms of how to do that.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I
So
don't know how it's done.
just 2 questions. The enclosure itself would not have to comply with the 20 feet. It would be slightly out. If the equipment's at 20 feet, the fence and the enclosure could be within the 10-foot setback. And then also, I do want to be clear that we're not talking about a roof structure.
No,
both
just,
both for ground cover purposes and because you're not really supposed to
yeah,
enclose these units. They're
Yeah.
not designed to be inside.
just something to help deaden the noise.
Yeah. So,
Okay. Okay, so, all right, let me read over the conditions that I think we have so far. Are we at that point?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So all chemical treatments of the pool water shall stop 3 weeks prior to any draining or discharging of the pool. If this is not feasible, the owner shall engage a professional company to discharge the pool water in a tanker and dispose of it at the wastewater treatment facility. So just to put a pin in that for a second, on D, no, not D, sorry. On B, where it says, if a municipal water source is not available, we know that's the case here, do we just want to say
The owner shall
the
engage
owner,
a professional
company to fill and drain the pool and discharge the pool water in a tanker and dispose of it at the wastewater
Sure.
treatment facility? Okay.
Combine them into one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
that makes sense.
Okay.
So I do have a question about that. I don't necessarily object, but if you stop treating it and then let it, and then drain it out into the ground, that's actually not considered a negative.
Well, then I would ask the neighbors how they feel about that. I mean, I think that,
I don't like the taste of chlorine.
I think the concerns
Yeah.
for the road and the neighbors and all of that, like,
That's
it's.
fine. I don't have an objection.
Yeah, I think it would just be a nicer way to do it, okay. So the pool shall not be chemically treated between November 1st and May 1st of any given year. The location of the pool, landscaping, and lighting shall be installed substantially as shown on the site plan provided. No exterior lighting associated with the pool is approved with this project. Exterior lighting in the pool area shall be in conformity with the provisions of Chapter 102 of the Town Code for outdoor recreational lighting. All work shall be done in substantial conformity with the site plan provided and in conjunction with the HDC certificate of appropriateness. Construction access is limited to the driveway. Any modification of the plan requires a public hearing. The pool equipment shall be low decibel and contained in an insulated fenced-in enclosure.
Sound insulated. yeah.
Sound insulated.
I mean,
And
we don't have to do it now, but we need is that the right terminology? That you can enforce it and say you have low volume? You do or don't have low volume?
Well, can we-
equipment in there?
I'm a little bit concerned about that one too. I was thinking that, well, I'm not sure what low decibel is for pool equipment.
Well, we've
And-
we've done it before with like air conditioning and things, but we've had them provide
The specifications.
what the specifications are that are being proposed.
So what if they had to provide that prior to the issuance of a building
Yeah.
permit for the pool?
Yes, okay.
In terms of insulating the enclosure, I think sound mitigation might be a term I would propose.
Okay.
It's fine.
So a sound mitigating enclosure?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that this is what we do, but I happen to know that there's a product called acoustical wood that looks like cedar that is designed exactly for this purpose, for air conditioning units and pool equipment, and that's what I would recommend. And then, you know, there are specs on that the manufacturer says, you know, it's this much better and whatever.
We want to see if they do both, the low decibel and the sound.
Yeah, both is,
One
both.
or the
So
other.
would we want to put just like such as, whatever what is it you just called?
Acoustical wood. I mean, I've seen it done two ways. I've seen people use acoustical wood, and I've seen people use, I want to say styrofoam, but it's not actually styrofoam, but that's what it looks like. But I don't know. I don't love that environmentally. I don't know if it's good or bad, but it's a little weird.
Okay.
I'd rather have something that, me personally, that looks natural.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Road, we talked about.
Oh, yes, thank you. So I wrote something, oh, yeah. So,
Again, in that case, we'd like them to work with the existing road committee.
right,
as
okay,
opposed
so
to-
let's try to go to the microphone, but yes, so what I had said was, repair and restoration to the road post-construction, in coordination with the existing maintenance plan.
Yeah, and again, we have a,
Or Arkansas, what do you call it, the Arkansas Association, or?
we are the Arkansas Avenue Road people. I mean,
Okay.
we inherited it 4 years ago, and we're doing it, and we just, you know, we ask the owners to contribute towards road work.
All right,
And
so.
70% of them do, and Guy has been one of them.
So post-construction road repair and restoration in,
Cooperation with the existing
Yeah.
committee.
Okay.
Just maybe
Do
that.
you do it annually?
Yeah, yeah. We usually do it late spring. So, can't be coordinating, because it might just be that maybe they'll pay a little bigger piece of the share rather, because they have a larger piece of property that has a larger frontage, and also the trucks and stuff will be causing a lot more different traffic than we get, so.
Okay. Okay, so I have A through J as conditions. Okay. Does anyone want to say anything else before I ask if anyone wants to put a motion in? No? Mark, do you have anything else to add?
No.
Okay. Anyone want to put a motion on this one?
Well, thank you for putting all those motions in, and hopefully we can put in a town warrant to change the zoning for Tristram's.
I'll make the motion with the conditions that we discussed.
Okay, so Michael's made the motion, Lisa seconds the motion. So all those in favor of granting the special permit for the pool with the conditions A through J as discussed, A through J, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so that passes unanimously. Okay.
Thank you, appreciate your time, and I appreciate the neighbors being involved. Even when they oppose my projects, I definitely think that that's what our community needs, is people, being involved. And, it usually ends up in a better result. So thank you. Thank you.
Welcome, thank you. Okay, so I think that's it for us. If we want to, do we want to talk about, we need to vote for Ed to,
No, the select board has to vote on that.
okay.
We
Okay.
have to vote on him resigning?
I just wasn't sure, there was something needed to be submitted to the town clerk, and I wasn't sure if we wanted to talk about
Do you all want to send him a letter thanking him for his service?
Absolutely.
100%.
Okay, so we'll draft something.
And that we accept his resignation with reluctance.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
agreed. And then we'll have to replace him as secretary,
Mm-hmm.
correct?
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember maybe we did that last time. Is he an officer still? I can't remember.
I
Madam Chair, I can speak to that.
okay.
You guys did appoint Elisa Allen as the
Oh, that's
secretary.
right, we did.
Great.
You're right.
Okay, good.
The clerk.
The clerk, or the
Clerk.
secretary.
Yeah.
Clerk, yeah.
Do you all want to sign a letter, or do you want the chairwoman to sign it on your behalf?
I think we should
I
all.
think
I
everybody
would like
should
to
sign
sign
it.
it, yeah.
Okay.
And then, so once the select board votes, do we advertise that we are looking for?
So the select board will vote on it at their meeting next week,
Mhm.
and they will advertise and follow the appointment process that
Great.
they've adopted.
Okay. Perfect. Okay. All right, so we could make a motion to adjourn then.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, so all those in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Just